Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Black Desert Championship DFS Tactics show. We are here to cover everything you need to finalize your lineups and finish your wagers for the inaugural Black Desert Championship. If you have been watching this week, you know I've been a little bit under the weather, so I've got two waters ready, some cough drops ready in case the coughing fits come back. But we are here to cover everything you need for the Black Desert Championship. We're going to have the rankings. We're going to take a look at the forecast for Ivins, Utah. Any questions that you have, feel free to jump in chat. Would love to be able to help you all out with any last-minute lineup decisions that you all have. So let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media where normally on Mondays I post research around previous tournament winners, patterns of those winners. Of course, this being the inaugural Black Desert Championship, no research posted. But if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow over at X. Also, over on X, I send out my betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show, so that'll be out later this evening after the show tonight. If you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you throughout the week with his own version of recent form, course history, and all of that. And normally, although not tonight as he has some prior obligations, but normally on Wednesday nights, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat as we continue the DFS talk over there. You really are missing out if you aren't a subscriber to his article, and show him some support. Follow him over on social media. Finally, we are live. Chat is open. I want to hear from you all. In addition to the poll question, which I'll post momentarily, who's your winner this week? Any players in particular that you are gravitating toward or staying away from? Again, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in chat. Would love to help you all with any lineup decisions that you all are contemplating at the moment. So yeah, with that, let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2024 Black Desert Championship. And we're going to start with a very quick look over at the Super Forecast on Windfinder. And I will post the poll question here. The poll question is pretty simple, but one to think about it, how you think the Black Desert Resort is going to play this week. So what do you think the winning score is going to be in Ivins, Utah this week? Is it 15 or worse, 22 or better, or somewhere in between? So I will post that poll and let you know what I think towards the end of the show. Although if you've been watching this week, you probably know where I stand on that. The forecast for the tournament, at least for the cut portion, very little wind tomorrow. Starts out, golfers are going to be playing in the mid-50s. It's going to be chilly up in the mountains of Utah. And then as the day progresses, it's going to get continuously warmer and warmer to a high of about 90. Friday, it does look like there is some decent amount of wind in the forecast for the afternoon. Having said that, as Gabe eloquently put in his description over on social media, or in his explanation, little skeptical of this as there's been no winds forecasted this high until this last update. So, you know, I'm going to wait and see, basically, to see what the next weather update and forecast update has for Ivins, Utah. As of right now, if this is the last weather forecast that you get, I suppose there wouldn't be a harm in slightly, and I mean slightly, favoring the Thursday PM, Friday AM. But again, I'm a little bit skeptical of this, considering this just now happened. So I'm just going to play my guys. If I'm in a tough decision or if I feel like I am overloaded on a player, I will check and see if they have the Friday PM and maybe back it off slightly. But I'm just playing the guys who I'm most confident in this week. And I am confident in a few players. I've got a very, very well thought out, well formulated core this week for the Black Desert Championship. So with that, in fact, we'll zoom out real quick, take a look at the weekend. The weekend looks very similar, very little wind throughout the morning and early afternoon, and then the wind picks up late in the afternoon and early evening for Saturday, and then very calm on Sunday. So very, very similar forecasts throughout the week in Ivins, Utah. No wind in the morning and picks up in the afternoon and early evening. A little bit of foreshadowing to my answer to the poll question, but all week I've talked about how I just think this is going to be easy. I do. I think this is going to be a pretty darn easy tournament for these professionals. So, very, very quickly, in the last 2 years, when rounds have been easy relative to par, your top performers in the field this week are Chan Kim, Eric Van Rooyen, Hayden Springer, Peter Quest, Ryo Hitsatsune, Bo Hostler, Keith Mitchell, Chesson Hadley, Patrick Rogers, and Harry Hall. Now, a couple of things that I want to cover very, very quickly because I did not put them in the mixed condition model. Let's take a look at proximity. I was debating with myself when I was finalizing my mixed condition model whether I needed to look at proximity. Because this is a new course, I just didn't feel confident enough to narrow a range. If I had to guess, it would be the 200 plus, thanks to the 3 par 4s that are over 500 yards here, and the par 5s, which I think all 3 will be attacked in 2. So your top 200 plus prox players in the field this week, in the last 36 rounds: J.J. Spawn, Michael Kim, Keith Mitchell, Troy Merritt, Sammy Valimaki, Andrew Novak, Nick Hardy, Kevin Doherty, Chandler Phillips, and Kurt Kitayama. Everything else, I believe, is going to be in the mixed condition model. So I did want to make sure we took a quick glance at easy performance, at 200 plus procs. But yeah, let's go into the mixed condition model that I have made for the inaugural Black Desert Championship. And we're going to start with 10% off the tee. The more I thought about it, the more I thought off the tee would play a decent factor. Yes, these fairways are wide, but you look at places like Vedanta. You look at places like TPC Scottsdale. TPC Scottsdale is a very, very good comp course, as it is also a Tom Weiskopf design, a desert resort course, just like Black Desert is. So those places put an emphasis on off the tee a little bit. It's not necessarily total length or driving distance. It's not about the precision and accuracy. It's just kind of a all around off the tee type course. Vedanta, even though it is not desert resort, I mean those fairways are extremely wide. Think of places like El Diamante, where Eric Van Rooyen won last year. Yeah, El Diamante. I believe Eric Van Rooyen, or maybe that was Vajegas. Very wide open, forgiving off the tee, very easy, but it still had some emphasis on off the tee. You think about the old El Camaleon, who won there two times in a row. Victor Hovland, even though it was a short course, those fairways were wide and forgiving. Hovland really made hay with off the tee. I'm going to go ahead and put a cough drop in. I apologize, but I'd rather you all hear that and deal with that than coughing fits like I was having on Monday night. So 10% off the tee when scoring is easy relative to par. Again, I just think off the tee is going to play a decent factor this week. 20% approach, kind of my baseline, especially for courses that either don't have statistics like Corrales, like Puerto Rico, or they're new. So 20% approach, 5% putting on bent greens. It's probably safe to say that these greens will be fast, especially considering the stimp meter reading that was given on the GCSA tournament fact sheet. But we just don't know for 100% certainty. So I just went with bent greens. If you wanted to hedge, I would have put fast or maybe even lightning bent greens. But I just have bent. I did not want to overrate it. But that's why we took a look at the end of the show Monday night on players' base performance putting in the past couple of years, and then their bent performance. Just wanted to see who puts bent well in the past couple of years. I do have a feeling this might turn into a putting contest, but I didn't want to overweight the putting. So 5% on bent greens, just like we had for the Sanderson Farms, and it worked out very, very well for us. 20% in opportunities gained when scoring is easy. I think this is going to be a very, very easy course for professionals. To win this week, you're going to have to go, pretty low. I don't want to spoil my answer just yet, but I think you're going to have to go pretty low. You're going to have to give yourself a lot of opportunities to make some putts. 20% in opportunities gained. 10% birdies are better when scoring is easy. And then to finalize the mixed condition model, I did some conjecture here at the ranges of holes that I think are going to play most important. Now, even though there is only one par 3 that measures this length, the longest par 3 here on the scorecard measures 202. So I'm thinking that that pin, that tee can be shortened to play under 200 yards. And then every single par 3 will play less than 200. Again, we have two par 3s that are 152, or one is 152, one is 156. Two of them that are just over 150 yards. So I think this might be a little bit heavy on the par 3 total. These two ranges are the ranges I want to focus on this week at Black Desert Resort. So 5% on the par 3s, 150 to 175. 5% par 3s, 175 to 200. Just like we looked at Monday night, I'm also looking at the two drivable par 4s. There is a drivable par 4 on each 9. One on the front, one on the back 9. I want to see who plays drivable par 4s well. And with 3 par 4s measuring over 500 yards, I want to see who plays the longest par 4s the best as well. Again, I'm not confident in it. That's why they're only at 5%. But if the ranges that I think are going to be most important on par 4s are these two. If par 3s matter, I think it's these two ranges. And then, of course, all 3 par 5s here at Black Desert Resort fall between 550 and 600. And that's why I have 15% there. I think normally professionals take advantage of par 5s anyway. I think they're going to have to score very well on these par 5s to stay in contention, much like they did at the Country Club at Jackson last week. I just think this is going to be pretty easy. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. Some areas where I might be weak. No around the green. Again, if I think this is easy, around the green would imply that players are chipping or scrambling for their pars. They're not getting birdies in that case, so I think they're just out of the tournament in that regard. If it's off the tee matters a little more or a little less, maybe these greens are obviously lightning, and I'm just underselling, the bent aspect of that. Okay, but I feel pretty good with this mixed condition model as a first pass at Black Desert Resort. So with that, and because I don't know how long my voice is going to stay in tonight, let's just go straight to the rankings for this week. A quick reminder for returning viewers, for your information, if you're a new viewer, my rankings are based on generally 3 criteria, although this week there's only 2. The FNGC rank, which is a straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just covered, the metrics and percentage in those statistics. The column that is not here is course value, or a player's performance at that course. Again, this is the inaugural Black Desert Championship, so no course history for anyone. And then we are playing DFS. We're looking for unique players. And so projected ownership per Fantasy National is also a factor in my rankings. Because we don't have the course value or prior course performance in the rankings this week, I did up the ownership weighting a little bit, meaning if a player is extremely unique, they're going to rise fairly significantly. You can see that there. My rankings for this week: Doug Gim is my number 1 player. Keith Mitchell, Nick Hardy, JJ Spawn, and Harry Hall round out my top 5. Kurt Kitayama, Troy Merritt, Austin Smotherman, Lucas Glover, and Mac Meisner round out my top 10. Now let's talk about, well, first we'll cover Troy Merritt very, very quickly. He is rising considerably thanks to this uniqueness, less than 1%. But Fantasy National also had him at 11th. I don't know if I'm that high on him, but what you can't deny is that the guy gives himself lots of opportunities, especially when it's easy. He generally plays easy pretty well, or at least that's when he's at his best, these birdie fests. So it's worth a look. I don't think I would have him in my top 10, but top 5 in opportunities gained, along with taking advantage of the length of par 5s here at Black Desert, it's certainly worth a look. The one I really want to talk about is JJ Spawn. I am not high on JJ Spawn after his withdrawal last week. The model would have no way of knowing that he is hurt. And that is my assumption going into this week, is that he's hurt. He withdrew. If he plays well this week, I will lose. But in a course with a lot of unknowns, with a player who has had history of injuries, this is just too much risk for me. Yes, the model loves him because it's all based on the numbers and his performance recently. Number 1 in approach, 20 in opportunities. But I'm just nowhere near Spawn. It's just nowhere near. So I wanted to cover those 2 players from the start, since they jumped into my top 10. Because I don't have much of a voice, and it's going to go out probably sooner rather than later, let's go ahead and sort on the price board, figure out where the members of Fantasy National are gravitating, and see where we can pivot off of that chalk. So in the 5 digits and the 10Ks, we have 4 players: Keith Mitchell at 10.6, Seamus Power at 10.3, Kurt Kitayama at 10.2, and Bo Hostler at 10,000 even. Despite my rankings, I'm probably highest on Seamus Power this week. Look, nothing wrong with Keith Mitchell statistically. First by the numbers, the ball striking extraordinaire. The putter is always going to hold him back. I think last week will take quite a bit out of him to miss the playoff the way he did, 3 putting on the 72nd. I just think there is a lot of room for a crash, essentially. Don't get me wrong, I'll play some Keith Mitchell this week, but I am not going to play nearly as much as I did last week, and not as nearly as much as what my rankings would indicate. So, once or twice, but that's about it. The player that baffles me in the 10Ks this week is Kurt Kitayama. Rated out extremely well, but he hasn't played since, I think, the Wyndham. I mean, he's been off for a long time. Hey, good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. It's good to see you this evening. Apologies that I am Still a little bit under the weather, so I will try not to hack both of my lungs in your ear. I've got both waters and cough drops ready, but at least in the Ohio Valley, some things you just can't control, and whenever the weather changes rapidly, for me, it always does a number on me. But thanks for jumping in chat this evening. Much appreciated. Hopefully you were ready for the Black Desert Championship, the inaugural Black Desert Championship. How was your Sanderson Farms? All of that good stuff. The player in the 10Ks that, it just baffles me is Kitayama. I don't know what to do with him. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's not that I feel bad necessarily. I just got a scratchy sore throat. Everything says to play him, including this very, very unique ownership. You're right, this course does look pretty sweet. I'm quite excited to see the scenery for it. However, I think professionals are going to tear this place up. I don't think this is going to present too much of a challenge. I'm not going to play Kitayama this week. Everything statistically lines up for him with the exception of one thing, and it's really bad. He is not, he is not a good putter on bent. He's generally not a great putter, but Bermuda he's fine. Past Palom he's been actually really good. Bent he's been atrocious. So that is what's scaring me off of Kitayama. I would not be surprised if he plays well, thanks to a lot of these, really solid metrics up here. But I just can't. I'm truly baffled by Kitayama. I don't really know what to do. Similarly to Keith Mitchell, I think there could be a letdown for Bo Hostler. He played extremely well. He's been playing pretty well lately. But to lose in a playoff, I think there could be a letdown there. So I'm going to have a little bit of Keith Mitchell. I have a little bit of Bo Hostler. Very little, one or two lineups. I'm actually most confident in Seamus Power, much like Fantasy National is. In the 10Ks, Seamus Power, one of the 2 or 3 players that doesn't have a bad statistic across here. It's his medium length par 3s and his drivable par 4s that he hasn't been, the best on. But those are his 2 worst. Nothing pink, nothing red. So, if I'm in the 10Ks, and I'm generally not with the lineups that I'm building, but if I'm in the 10Ks, I'm generally using Seamus Power the most. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm just not up here all that often in my lineups. That'll tell you the kind of lineups I'm building. So in the 10Ks, I'll make Power my number 1 player. I'm going to go Hostler second, Keith Mitchell third, Kurt Kitayama fourth, only because I really don't know what to do with Kitayama other than the fact that his putter on bent is atrocious, and that's what's keeping me away. Moving into the 9s, talk about Patrick Fishburne. He is the player that everyone's gravitating towards. Utah or BYU native, I think Utah native, has also played this course for a fact. Even though it's only been open for about a year, maybe a year and a half. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of my bolder suggestions. I'm going to fade him. I'm going to fade Patrick Fishburne, and it's completely on the ownership. Like, everything lines up for him pretty well beyond the narrative of Utah, BYU, all that. He's been playing well. He's the number 1 par 5 performer in this field. He's very good off the tee, which I have talked about how I think is going to play a factor this week. Very good on bent. Like, everything lines up for him. I hate this ownership. I absolutely hate this ownership. And because of that, I'm going to fade him because playing a 9,600 25% owned Patrick Fishburne is essentially saying he has to top 5 almost to make it worth it. He's certainly capable, but I'm not confident that he top 5s. This is approaching Scotty Scheffler territory. Maybe not necessarily in price, but with ownership relative to everybody else. Patrick Fishburne isn't Scotty Scheffler. There are some flaws in that game. I just think there's a lot you can gain if you're willing to avoid Patrick Fishburne. It's a good play. It's fine. I would certainly think about using him in 50-50s or double ups or things of that nature. But in your big GPPs, where the winnings are very top heavy, no thanks. No thanks. I'm out. He's gotten way too much attention this week. Instead, I'm going to gravitate you to the person right above him. Chris Kirk. Also, like Kitayama, hadn't played for a while. Probably the best golfer in the field. He's the highest rated per OWGR. Think about where Chris Kirk won this year. Kapalua. Okay, those are Bermuda greens. But what's Kapalua known for? Very, very easy. Very wide, spacious fairways. Sounds fairly similar, fairly akin to Black Desert, does it not? Why Chris Kirk is only 10% projected ownership is beyond me. So give me all the Chris Kirk I can handle. If he does not play well, I will lose. Yeah, the irons haven't been great, but gives himself plenty of opportunities. Putts bent, well enough. I like Chris Kirk quite a bit this week. Especially considering he's won before. A lot of these other guys haven't won before. I mean, at least Keith Mitchell has won before. Seamus Power has won before. Bo Hostler has not won. Chris Kirk has won before. A lot of these guys haven't. So give me Chris Kirk. I like him a lot this week. I want to like Ben Griffin. I don't know. This is a gut feeling on Ben Griffin. I think he might not play all that well this week. And then the only other 9K that I'm really gravitating towards is down at the bottom of the 9Ks. It's Lucas Glover. Yeah, he's chalky. That's fine. This is some chalk I'll eat. Lucas Glover. Lots of irons. Gives himself plenty of opportunities. And despite the fact that his putter is not very good, it's actually been pretty decent on bent. Think about his win at the John Deere. That's bent. So, I like Glover and I like Kirk in the 9Ks. I might have Patrick Fishburne once, and I mean once, as I cover myself. But other than that, I really don't like the 9Ks a whole lot either. Which again, reemphasizes the style of lineups I'm building. Moving into the 8s, Chang Kim. Anytime it's easy, you got to think about him. But that's a lot of ownership. So, I mean, this is starting to get into Patrick Fishburne territory. Might be a fade. You see just at the end of your screen, number one, birdies are better when it's easy. Again, I mean, he plays easy courses extremely well. That ownership's starting to get pretty ugly. I really like Thorbjornsen this week. I've seen where his ownership I think is probably creeping up a little bit. I still think it's fine. We talked about JJ Spawn, but this is a full fade with a course of unknowns because it's never been played. A guy coming off a withdrawal, no thanks. That's just too much risk, too much unknown for me. If he plays well, I'll lose, but I'm out on JJ Spawn. Instead, I'm going to gravitate you to $100 lower. I wish he was a little bit more unique, but Harry Hall. Essentially top 20 in irons. Lots of opportunities. Takes advantage of par 5s. Third on bent in this field. And look at the par 4s. Drivable par 4s he takes advantage of. Long par 4s he takes advantage of. I really like Harry Hall this week. I don't think I can quit Svensson, but man, after being pretty high on him last week and him falling apart, I'm going to certainly limit my ownership of Adam Svensson. I think Matt McCarty showed enough last week that he's probably worth rostering because he's hot. I mean, winner 3 times on the PGA or on the Korn Ferry Tour, and then comes out and top 30s or whatever he did at the Sanderson Farms. The guy's just in great form right now. He's probably worth a roster spot or at least heavy consideration. So in the 8Ks, I can't get away from Chan Kim, but this is some ugly ownership. So I'm going to use Chan Kim. I'm going to try to limit my use of Chan Kim. I love Thorbjornsen. Love Harry Hall, but I wish he was a little bit more unique than this. I will dabble with Vincent just because I can't quit him, and McCarty's worth a look. Going into the upper 7s, Doug Ginn, my number 1 player, again with very little putting. Doug Ginn's going to rise. Middling owned. Look, it just depends on if the putter cooperates. It's okay. It's fine. I'm not in love with the play, but I'll certainly use Doug Ginn this week. Instead, I'm going to go to Justin Lauer. This is the other chalk I will eat. I really like Justin Lauer this week. But you see, he's been garnering a lot of attention at Fantasy National. Kazire, I think he's played well 2 tournaments in a row. I wasn't afraid to use him at the Sanderson Farms. He's played well 2 tournaments in a row, winning the Pro Tour, then the Sanderson Farms. I think there might be a letdown here, but he's still playing very well. I'm going to wait a little bit on Berger. People are still are willing to go back to Berger, and he's burned you before. Yeah, he might pop on a tournament, but I stress this all the time. I want to see continuous, sustained success before I get back on that bandwagon. I like Berger as a player, I really do, but I just want to show me 3 events in a row where he performs well and doesn't have a setback. It's been 3 years since that's happened. I'll be late to the Berger party. That's fine. Don't ignore Rico Hoey. I think people are getting off of Rico Hoey considering how poorly he played Sunday at the Sanderson Farms. The guy was, lurking in the top 25 for most of Saturday. The guy's still playing very well. This course is easy. Don't ignore Rico Hoey. I'm going to be using some Rico Hoey for sure. And I want to stress Jacob Bridgman as well. I like Jacob Bridgman a lot. Yeah, the off the tee might be a little suspect, but with how forgiving these fairways are, I think Bridgman will be pretty darn good. Moving into the lower 7s, Nick Hardy. Again, rates out very, very well. A little concerned with that putter on bent. So, worthy of a long look, definitely. But if you don't end up going there, I understand. Nick Hardy. I'm going to go back to the well with Hayden Springer. I think some people might have been surprised at how highly rated he was last week, and he ended up playing very, very well. Still only a 12% projected ownership. Take a long, long look at Hayden Springer, especially because the guy lights up easy courses. He lights up par 5s, and he's pretty good on bent. Elsewhere in the low 7s, like Chesson Hadley again is okay. Austin Smotherman rated out extremely well for me. Not nearly as high on Austin Smotherman as this might seem. Again, a lot of that due to his poor performance on bent. But maybe there's something to look at here. 3rd in irons. Essentially top 15 in opportunities. So, worth a look, I guess. I'm not necessarily there, but I definitely threw him into a lineup because of how high he rated. Because of the lineups that I've been building, I've actually not been going into the 6Ks much at all. So there really isn't a mad scientist play this week. Well, technically the mad scientist play is avoiding Patrick Fishburne That would be my mad scientist play. But if you are in the 6Ks, we'll mention a couple of players here. First one is Peter Quest, 6,400. Peter Quest. This guy really likes easy courses. He's a BYU native. See, off the tee when it's easy. Second. Birdies are better when it's easy. Third. He's also a decent putter on bent. It's worth a look. I don't know if you're needing to come down this low, but it's worth a look. Talked about Troy Merritt. I don't think I would, I definitely wouldn't put him in my top 10, but man, he rated out extremely well. Top 5 in opportunities, top 15 in these par 5s. Okay. Might be worth a look if you're needing some price savings. He's also ultra unique. But in the traditional definition of the sense, my mad scientist play this week would be Brandon Wu. We talked about him a lot on Monday night, or I can't say a lot. We talked about him Monday night, how he spikes a lot on bent. And you think about where Brandon Wu has played his best, it's at Vedanta. Vedanta feels pretty similar to Black Desert. Very spacious, wide, forgiving fairways. Not a whole lot of undulation in the greens. Course is kind of laid out in front of you. So I do like Brandon Wu if I were to go into the 6Ks. I'm just not doing it this week. But I think Brandon Wu for your Stars and Scrubs lineups, I think is going to be pretty darn good. So there's a look at the price board and where members of Fantasy National are gravitating. Let's start making some lineups. For those who play tiers contests, Tier 1, Keith Mitchell, Seamus Power, Kurt Kitayama. If you have any read on Kurt Kitayama, take him. I just don't. So I'm going to take Seamus Power. I do think Mitchell has a letdown this week. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. It's much appreciated. I apologize that I'm a little bit under the weather and there's scratchy throat and all the coughing. So I did not want to leave the community without a show tonight. So I will soldier my way through it. But again, apologies for how poorly I sound. Molinex and Gashkuski is super duper mad scientist. Molinex was the mad scientist play last week. And even though he wasn't really a factor, he made the cut. I was pretty happy with that suggestion. I've seen Gashkuski mentioned a couple of times by people. I'm not there. He was the lowest rated per Fantasy National. Really, the only thing I see here, he's elite at these very short par 3s. Literally everything else is pretty bad. Again, I'm not there. If he plays well, I will give you full credit next week, Phil. I'm just not there. Molinex felt pretty good last week. Do you know what his pricing is off the top of your head? Because of the the Bermuda. There he is, 71. Even though he wasn't traditionally a good putter on Bermuda, he spiked. I didn't see that this week with his bent performance. I think he's just generally pretty bad on bent. So while he was, top half, I'm not nearly as confident in Trey Mullinax this week as I was last week at the Sanderson Farms. But Gashkuski, that's a name out of left field, at least for me. I'm not there, but kudos to you if you're playing Gashkuski and he makes the cut. But thanks for jumping in chat this evening. So yeah, Tier 1, I'll take Seamus Power. I do think Keith Mitchell has a letdown this week. Tier 2, Bo Hostler, EVR, Chris Kirk, Patrick Fishburne, and Yeager. Everybody's gravitating to Fishburne. I understand why. Go Chris Kirk. I'm telling you, go Chris Kirk. He's going to perform this week. And if he doesn't, I'm going to lose. But I am flabbergasted why Chris Kirk is only at 10% projected ownership. I understand why Fishburne's at his, but Kirk needs to be a whole lot more higher owned, and that's just to our benefit. Use Chris Kirk, especially in this tiers contest, because he's going to be very unique in this tier. Not to mention, Hostler's going to get some attention. EVR might get some. Yeah, I like Chris Kirk a lot in that tier. Tier 3, Ben Griffin, Ryan Fox, Lucas Glover, Chan Kim. Two-person tier. As much as I really liked Ryan Fox last week, I'm just not there this week. So, for me, I'm going to take Lucas Glover. I understand if you like Chan Kim, but for me, I'm going to take Lucas Glover. Tier 4, Thor Bjornsson, Rogers, Spawn, Harry Hall, English, and Svensson. Again, two-person tier for me between Thor Bjornsson and Harry Hall. I really like Thor Bjornsson this week, but I'm just really confident in Harry Hall. And the fact that we took a seemingly very unique Chris Kirk allows us to take some chalk. So I'll take Harry Hall here. It is really close because I am really high on Thor Bjornsson this week. Tier 5, Novak, McCarty, Gim, Matty Schmid, Mac Meisner, Justin Lauer, and Kazire. Lots of good options here. I don't know if any of them are great. Doug Gim, yes, while being the number one player in my rankings, he's number one really because we're not factoring in a lot of putting. The putter will hold him back. I think Matt McCarty showed enough that he certainly warrants consideration. Justin Lauer is very, very chalky. A good play, but chalky. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm trying to talk myself into Matt McCarty. Doug Gim actually might be the choice. So give me Doug Gim in tier 5. It might be McCarty. Justin, if you're not afraid of ownership or you don't care about ownership, go Justin Lauer. I'm pretty confident in Justin Lauer. He's just going to be really popular. So give me Doug Gim in that case, but this tier is just pretty solid in general. And then finally, tier 6, Skins, Pearson Coody, Norlander, Smotherman, Sammy Valimaki, Cam Champ, and Trey Mullinax. Ooh, interesting tier. Smotherman clearly rated out the best. This is interesting. Yeah, I guess I'll go Smotherman. There's your chance at Trey Mullinax there, Phil, if you're playing tiers contest. So he'll be very unique in tier 6. But I guess I'll go Smotherman in tier 6 for this construction. So this tier's team is going to go Seamus Power, tier 1. Tier 2 is Chris Kirk. Tier 3 is Lucas Glover. Tier 4 is Harry Hall. Tier 5, I'm still on the fence, but I'll say Doug Gim. Doug Gim, McCarty, or Justin Lauer. Now I'm trying to talk myself into Justin Lauer. There's a lot of good options in tier 5. Take who you think's best. I'm waffling. Now I'm between Gim and Lauer. It might be Lauer. And then tier 6 is Smotherman. All right. Let's transition to building some classic lineups, building our GPP lineups. Hey, Complex, thanks for jumping in chat. No apologies needed. I'm just appreciative that you take some time out of your evening to watch my stream, watch my show. So I very much appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in chat. I apologize that I'm still not 100%. So the cough drop is in. The waters have been drank a lot. So I apologize for coughing, but I did not want to leave the community without a show this evening. So I'll try to power through it. It's good to see you this evening. Let's start by making a couple of seemingly chalky lineups to see what our fellow contestants are doing and how we are going to want to maneuver around that. So the first look at a lineup, we're going to start with Seamus Power. This is going to be more akin to a Stars and Scrubs lineup. Probably won't be a Stars and Scrubs in the traditional sense because not many of our fellow contestants are going into the 6Ks. Like Hitsatsune is at 8%. Peter Quest is at 7.5%. So, I mean, those are the two most obvious choices in the 6Ks. But really, at least per Fantasy National, they're bottoming out at Ben Coles. So this doesn't leave them a whole lot of room to maneuver in through here. Let's see. Hayden Springer could also be in this. If they truly bottom out at Ben Coles, I really don't think they're going to be able to do Patrick Fishburne. Instead, they're probably going to have to come down to like a Chan Kim. Andrew Novak is getting a whole lot of attention. Yeah, this will work. Then Justin Lauer. Or actually, they could just do double 77s at Kazire and Berger. This looks like a fairly chalky lineup. I say fairly chalky, extremely chalky lineup. The most expensive plays at 10-6. You don't have to go into the 6Ks this week, even if you go into the 10s, into the 5 digits. 109% cumulative ownership. That is ugly. Don't want no part of that. But this is a pretty chalky, not just lineup, but construction. Choose whatever 10K you think. Maybe they do go Mitchell. Chan Kim's going to get a whole lot of attention. Novak's getting a lot. And then rounding out throughout the 7s. So that's a look at what I would call the Stars and Scrubs version of a lineup this week. But it looks like most of our fellow contestants are going balanced with Patrick Fishburne. Again, this would be Chan Kim. Yeah, let's just throw him in there. Chan Kim, JJ Spawn. People don't seem to be afraid after last week's withdrawal. I'm gonna tell you right now, if Spawn plays well, I'm gonna lose. I am nowhere near JJ Spawn. Justin Lauer. Ben Coles here. I'm going to try to use a different name just to highlight some players here. Hayden Springer. This leaves 79, 77, like Kazire, Berger. 110% projected ownership, or cumulative ownership. Fishburne, Kim, Justin Lauer getting a whole lot of love. Andrew Novak could be in this. Maybe they come off of Berger a little bit. But that is the kind of lineup that's going to get built most often. And, I like Chan Kim. I like Hayden Springer. But you're not going to be able to use these guys together or much without finding some uniqueness. So, how are we going to maneuver around that chalk? Well, the first way, again, I would use Seamus Power in terms of a Stars and Scrubs. I don't mind Mitchell, although I do think he has a letdown. But Hostler could be interesting. If you want to get real unique, it's Kurt Kitayama. I just don't know what to do with him. Everything analytically lines up really good, except for the putter on bent. He is really bad. The worst in this field, statistically rated on bent greens. So that's why I'm not using Kitayama. But if you wanted to be really unique going into the 10Ks, it's Kitayama. I'm going to use Seamus Power. I know he's the most projected owned player in the 10Ks, but it's the player I'm the most confident in up there. And then I gave you a couple of names in the 6Ks. But I would go to Brandon Wu in the 6s. 6,700. We talked about him a little bit on Monday night, but the guy spikes a lot on bent greens. take a look at Brandon Wu in your Stars and Scrubs builds to finalize your lineups. But this gives us a lot of wiggle room in here, especially since we're willing to drop into the 6Ks. We can go into the 9s. Maybe you like a Ben Griffin. Maybe you like an Eric Van Rooyen. I'm not necessarily there on either of those players. I'm saving Kirk for other types of lineups, but I guess we could throw him in there. Chris Kirk, I think, is criminally under-owned, at least projected by Fantasy National. I think he's going to play extremely well this week. And then come down into the 8s. Maybe you have to go into the low 8s. Matt McCarty, I think, is completely worthy of a look. Maybe it's Thor Bjornsson. Not necessarily there with Rodgers. I mean, Shane Kim is a good play, but he's very popular. Although with Chris Kirk, you could probably afford to take Shane Kim here. Let's see what Thor Bjornsson. 72. Yeah, that's a little too much. I mean, this could be Harry Hall. I'm just trying to save Harry Hall for the next, or for my, optimal lineup. So maybe we just do a bunch in the upper 7s, like Doug Gim. Maybe you're not afraid of the putter. Mac Miser, I'm not there. Justin Lauer, Rico Hoey. Someone to really think about. Really like Rico Hoey this week. And then, someone else in here up in the mid to low 7s. Bridgman, Nick Hardy, Hayden Springer. We'll throw Nick Hardy into this, I guess. I mean, you're going to be pretty unique because you're leaving some money on the table, and only at 66% cumulative ownership. Pretty darn unique lineup here, considering you're coming down to the 6s for Brandon Wu. You're playing Chris Kirk over Patrick Fishburne. Pretty unique lineup here that I think is going to be pretty solid for you. And I've built a couple of those lineups, but I'm telling you, I am pretty confident in finding some chalk off of the balanced lineups. And when I'm telling you balanced, I mean I am going ultra balanced. I'm skipping the 10s and I'm skipping the 9s. Although as much as I love Chris Kirk, I've got Chris Kirk in quite a few lineups. I'm telling you, I am starting at 9,000 Lucas Glover. Like, I'm going ultra balanced because I love the 8s. I will throw in a Shane Kim into this. I'll throw a Thor Bjornsson. I love Harry Hall this week. Like, I've been starting my lineup with these 4 and Chris Kirk, essentially. Chris Kirk and then these 4. 80 to 90% of my lineups. Like, 3 of those 5 are in my lineups. I got a very, very tight core of those players because I just love everything about that upper 8 region. I mean, I'm going to count Lucas Glover as part of it, even though he's 9,000. Glover, Kim, Thor Bjornsson, Hall. Love this whole area of this price board. And I'm not playing any JJ Spawn, so I'm getting off that chalk a little bit. And then to finalize this lineup, I do like Hayden Springer at 73. He's been getting a little bit of attention, not as much as Ben Coles per se, but getting a little bit of attention. But I do like Hayden Springer. And then Rico Hoey, Jacob Bridgman. Even Alex Smalley I'll throw into a lineup, but I'm going to use Bridgman in this one. If I could spell. A little bit higher, but certainly not to the 110% that we saw from the chalky balanced lineup. Since you're willing to go to Bridgman, you're off of the Patrick Fishburne. You can really make this unique if you want. If you wanted to come off of Chan Kim, you go Glover to Thor Bjornsson, Harry Hall. I mean, you have 8,900 here. You know, maybe like a Svensson. You can use a Doug Gim. Justin Lauer definitely fits into this. Rico Hoey. So, you know, I've just been gravitating for Chris Kirk, Glover Kim, Thor Bjornsson, Harry Hall. That is the core up top for me. And then been rounding it out, you know, however I see fit with, you know, a lot of Rico Hoey, a lot of Bridgman. I've been using some Nick Hardy, some Hayden Springer, sprinkling a little bit of Alex Smalley. I like Justin Lauer, but that ownership's a lot. Trying to limit a little bit of Justin Lauer. But those are the kind of lineups that I've been building most often. Let me put that back in for you. In fact, let's go Chris Kirk, Lucas Glover, Thor Bjornsson. Harry Hall is going to be too much in this, but you get the gist. Hayden Springer. Yeah, dang it! I wanted to try to squeeze in Chris Kirk into that, and it's just not going to work. So I'll throw Rico Hoey / Jacob Bridgman. Those are the kind of lineups that I've been building most often this week for the Black Desert Championship. I apologize again for my scratchy throat. Living in the Ohio Valley, it's allergy season, and anytime the weather changes hot to cold or cold to hot, it throws me for a loop. So I apologize for hacking all this time. But I want to thank P and Phil and Complex for jumping into chat. It's very much appreciated. Really appreciate the support. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Van Rooyen feels like a boom or bust. I would agree, and that's why I am really not using Van Rooyen. I've been just going to Chris Kirk, especially if his ownership is going to be that much lower than Van Rooyen's. So I'm in agreement with you there, Phil. There's a lot to be gained there, but I think his floor is really low as well. But thanks to you all for jumping to chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who watched this evening. Again, I can't stress enough. I apologize for all the hacking and coughing. So I'm hoping next week will be better. But love what I do. Taking an in-depth look at sports and golf statistics. Trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. No chat over in Gabe's tonight. He had prior obligations. So feel free to reach out to me on social media or in the comments of this video with all of your last minute questions. But let me know throughout the week and weekend how you do at the inaugural Black Desert Championship. So for all the wagers you've made this week for the Black Desert Championship, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the Black Desert Championship, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.